So what are the origins of the Mesoamerican theories that have been proposed as Book of Mormon lands? I've been able to trace them back to several articles in the Times and Seasons, and then another individual by the name of John Bernheisel. Just a quick background on Brother Bernheisel. He was actually a bishop of the church in New York and quite a close friend with the prophet Joseph Smith. And so we'll talk about each one of these Times and Seasons articles and a little bit about how they related to the establishment of Mesoamerica as a setting for the Book of Mormon. We have to follow this chronologically, and that's why I have this in a chronological format, starting from June 15th of 1842 with the Times and Seasons down to October 1st of 1842. And then the Bernheisel account was actually in 1841. Some of the challenges to these accounts: prior to this, on January the 28th of 1842, Joseph Smith received a revelation that the 12 apostles should be given responsibility for the Times and Seasons and manage the print shop. Joseph recorded thus: I received the following revelation to the 12 concerning the Times and Seasons, given January 28th, 1842. Revelation: Verily, thus saith the Lord unto you, my servant Joseph, go and say unto the 12, that it is my will to have them take in hand the editorial department of the Times and Seasons. Certainly Joseph Smith would have done exactly as the Lord indicated and turned over the responsibility for the Times and Seasons to the 12. A few months after that, then Joseph Smith is going to be writing some of the articles, and in the first edition of the Times and Seasons that he was the chief editor, this was Tuesday, March the 15th, 1842. He says, to subscribers, this paper commences my editorial career. I alone stand for it and shall do for all papers having my signature henceforward. One of the very interesting things that we find in the historical documents is that none of these editorials that indicate a Mesoamerican setting for the Book of Mormon were actually signed by Joseph Smith himself. The Times and Seasons, June 15th, 1842 edition. This is an article called Traits of the Mosaic History. This article basically discusses the similarities between Baron Humboldt's volume of researches in Mexico and biblical accounts of Noah's flood, confusion of the language at the time of Babel that were reported there, and it states in the Times and Seasons, there are many things contained in the above that go to support the testimony of the Book of Mormon, as well as that of the Mosaic history. The Mexican records agree so well with the word of the Book of Ether in relation to the confounding of languages that we insert the following, and then they actually insert chapter 1 of Ether into the Times and Seasons. Here then we have two records found upon this continent that go to support the words of eternal truth, the Bible. And whilst these records, both of them, sanction the testimony of the Scriptures in regard to the flood, the Tower of Babel, and the confusion of languages, their tradition and hieroglyphics of the Zaltese, the Cohacans, and the Azteca nations in regard to the confusion of languages and their travels to this land is so like that contained in the Book of Mormon that the striking analogy must be seen by every superficial observer. These accounts then precisely agree, one of which was found in Ontario County, New York, and the other in Mexico. Again, those nations of families embody themselves together and traveled they know not where, but at length arrived in the county of Aztlan of the Lake County of America. The Book of Mormon says that the brother of Jared cried unto the Lord that he would give them another land. The Lord heard him and told him to go to a certain place. And there I will meet thee and go before thee into a land which is choice above all the land of the earth. This, it further speaks, is the land of America. The coincidence is so striking that further comment is unnecessary. Signed, E.D. A couple of quick questions about this. Did the previous account indicate that the Book of Mormon and the Humboldt volume are both about the same people? No, it was simply demonstrating that both the Book of Mormon and the Mexican records support the biblical accounts of Noah's flood and the Tower of Babel. The use of ED or editor was for use by those who had authorization as such. John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, and Joseph Smith all appear to have been authorized to sign as editor based on their differing personal writing styles and word usage patterns. In other words, when they would write, they would use specific words, and they had certain patterns that they would write. And so articles that were signed ED if you take a look at the linguistics, many times could be determined who it was that wrote those articles. And John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, and Joseph Smith all had the editorial authorization to sign as such. In the Times and Seasons, this is still in this June 15th, 1842 edition. In several instances, the Times and Seasons had an article attributed to E.D., or editor, and another article to Joseph Smith in the same issue, bearing the same statement on the end page that the Times and Seasons was edited, printed, and published by Joseph Smith. Well, certainly Joseph Smith did not fulfill all of these responsibilities personally, including the editing for which he had previously already given the 12 the responsibility to do. When somebody says, well, the ED means it was Joseph Smith himself that did that, well, according to that editor end page, it means that it was edited, it says that it was edited, printed, and published by the prophet. And certainly Joseph Smith was not actually setting type and putting these things together. Only through Joseph Smith's attached personal signature, as he himself promised to do for all articles having my signature henceforward, can confidence be given that the article was in fact written by himself and not one of the other editors of the Times and Seasons. This article in July the 15th of 1842, called American Antiquities, discusses artifacts found in Marietta, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, Natchez on the Mississippi, some made of copper near Chillicothe, Ohio, others of silver found in Circleville and Marietta, Ohio. The article then quotes from the Book of Mormon regarding ores and concludes by mentioning mounds, fortifications, architecture, implements of war. In every case, the articles mentioned were found in North America. The article, without mention of any Mesoamerican archaeological artifacts, ends up with the unknown editor attaching Stephen's researches to the North American finds. The article was signed E.D. for editor. This is a quote from that article. If men in their researches into the history of this country, in noticing the mounds, fortifications, statues, architecture, implements of war, of husbandry, and ornaments of silver, brass, etc., were to examine the Book of Mormon, their conjectures would be removed and their opinions altered. Uncertainty and doubt would be changed into certainty and facts. Stevens and Catherwood's researches in Central America abundantly testify of this thing. The stupendous ruins, the elegant structure, and the magnificence of the ruins of Guatemala and other cities corroborate this statement and show that a great and mighty people, men of great minds, clear intellect, bright genius, and comprehensive designs inhabited this continent. Their ruins speak of their greatness. The Book of Mormon unfolds their history. Signed, E.D. Now, this is the Times and Seasons September 15th, 1842 article called Extract. And what happens in this article is that the editors put in a little portion from the Stevens Incidents of Travel in Central America book and then make some editorial comment about it afterwards. The foregoing extract has been made. We are sorry that we could not afford the expense to give the necessary cuts referred to in the original. Let us turn our subject, however, to the Book of Mormon, where these wonderful ruins of Palenque are among the mighty works of the Nephites, and the mystery is solved. Mr. Stevens' great developments of antiquities are made bare to the eyes of all the people by reading the history of the Nephites in the Book of Mormon. They lived about the narrow neck of land which now embraces Central America with all the cities that can be found. Now, this was an unsigned article, but in the writing style, the editors used the words we and our and so forth, meaning that this was a type of writing that you will see that is different from when Joseph Smith actually writes the articles. This is a different article in the same September 15th, 1842 edition of the Times and Seasons. It's called Facts or Stubborn Things. From an extract from Stevens' Incidents of Travel in Central America, it will be seen that the proof of the Nephites and Lamanites dwelling on this continent, according to the account in the Book of Mormon, is developing itself in a more satisfactory way than the most sanguine believer in that revelation could have anticipated. It certainly affords us a gratification that the world of mankind does not enjoy, to give publicity to such important developments of the remains and ruins of those mighty people. When we read in the Book of Mormon that Lehi went down to the Red Sea to the great southern ocean and crossed over to this land and landed a little south of the Isthmus of Darien as a branch of the house of Israel, and then read such a goodly traditionary account as the one below, we cannot but think the Lord has a hand in bringing to pass his strange act and proving the Book of Mormon true in the eyes of all the people. The extract below comes as near the real fact as the four evangelicals do to the crucifixion of Jesus. Surely, facts are stubborn things. It will be as it ever has been. The world will prove Joseph Smith a true prophet by circumstantial evidence in experiments as they did Moses and Elijah. This is a contrast. If you notice how those last two articles were written, they said we all through it. This article in the same September 15th, 1842 edition was actually signed at the bottom, Joseph Smith. And look at the difference of how Joseph Smith writes. He says, I now close my letter for the present, for the want of more time, for the enemy is on the alert, and as the Savior said, the prince of this world cometh, but he hath nothing in me. Behold, my prayer to God is that you all may be saved, and I subscribe myself your servant in the Lord, prophet and seer of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Signed, Joseph Smith, at the bottom of this article. The other two articles are not signed. Both this article and the extract article were unsigned and written using we throughout. In this same issue, the article Tidings is written by Joseph Smith with his signature attached. In his signed article, as with virtually all other articles that were signed by Joseph Smith, he used first-person English referring to himself as I throughout the article. This is strong evidence that those articles written using we rather than I were in fact not written by the prophet, but one of the other editors. This is October the 1st, 1842, Zarahemla article. This is another article where there was an extract and then they wrote this editorial piece at the end. Since our extract was published by Mr. Stevens, Incidents of Travel, etc., we have found another important fact relating to the truth of the Book of Mormon. Central America, or Guatemala, is situated north of the Isthmus of Darien and once embraced several hundred miles of territory from north to south. The city of Zarahemla, burnt at the crucifixion of the Savior and rebuilt afterwards, stood upon this land. Now that is a pretty factual statement. They come right out and say the city of Zarahemla was on this land, as if it was a established fact. But then in the next lines, they say this: we are not going to declare positively that the ruins of Catagua are those of Zarahemla, but when the land and the stones and the books tell the story so plain, we are of the opinion. Now think about that for just a second. How many times did you ever hear of Joseph Smith coming out and making a statement, a hard and fast statement like this one just did, and then said, well, in my opinion, we have to do this or that. That wasn't Joseph Smith's style. That wasn't the way Joseph Smith did things. That was the way of whoever this editor was, probably either John Taylor or Wilford Woodruff at the time, that actually wrote this editorial. That it would require more proof than the Jews could bring to prove the disciples stole the body of Jesus from the tomb, than to prove that the ruins of the city in question are not one of those referred to in the Book of Mormon. On one hand, this is Zarahemla was on this land. On the other hand, they say, well, we're not going to declare that really positively, but it's our opinion that this is what happened. That was not written by Joseph Smith. Some of the challenges with these accounts: Joseph Smith went into hiding from the unlawful arrest being perpetrated against him due to false accusations for an attempted assassination of Governor Boggs. This began Monday, August the 8th, and continued until Thursday, October the 20th of 1842. So Joseph Smith was in fact hiding from the law at the time that both of these editions of the Times and Seasons, the September 15th and October 1st editions, came out.